Hi, this is Nancy McClelland, and we're going to work today on the Copic class for Scrapmania that we're going to do with I would consider them more of a masculine themed cards. Now, these are not the cards, these are just pictures of the cards that I've copied over, so they're going to maybe not give you quite the color, exact color because they've been copied, but this is the type of thing that we're going to do. And what I want to do is kind of go over the cards for you. We're going to color, I think, a couple of them. I don't know that it's important. I don't want this video to be so long that you just get tired of it. But I may try to get the video on here and we can maybe zoom through some different things. So basically, we're going to color the images, and I've given you indications, I've given you suggestions. To me, these look like old-timey stations, and I mean different things. Like this particular one where the garage had kind of some meaning to me because it's Fred's garage. My daddy he had gas stations as I grew up, and his name was Fred, so it meant something to me with the old gas pumps. And so I just chose some colors that I thought would work and that we could use universally within the cards. Again, you could take the pumps, and these could be just normal, like kind of glass globes, white globes. But again, I would do them a color them in like a white or a gray tone. And then the pumps could be red. Lots of different things on that. This background color could be changed for the background if you don't want that color. So I added a little bit of green, added some basic color to make this look like a white gas station, which typically they were white gas stations, which were, painted white. Some of the other ones were different colors. So this looks like the artist has made this into being like a block type of, garage, which it would be. And then at the bottom, we did a little bit of coloring with our Copics to add some interest there. But then what we're going to do is use some blending brushes to blend that out, just to make it a little more universal. Like this could be something that was like even a dirt driveway at that point. So there's that one. This one is going to be completely fussy cut all the way around the image. And then this particular sentiment tucks in behind it. We're not going to glue this portion and a little bit this, but we're not going to completely glue it down. So you can tuck that in. Thought that was kind of fun. Or if you don't like that, you can put it directly on the card. The diner, again, it's got a red border around it. Again, diners could be just typically a silver white diner. You could choose any type of an awning. So I just chose like maybe the little awnings over the windows and over the door. And then I highlighted the Tom's Diner. All of these, I've added little touches of glossy accents, like on the pumps, on the sign. You could add some on the gas station up here. Again, we won't go over that because that's something you can choose to do if you'd like to, okay? Same thing on that. We're going to do some blending for the sky and everything on that one. This one is like an old Dairy Queen type of dairy dip, okay? So we're going to do a little bit of just ink blending to put some clouds. If you have a stencil, you can use a stencil to put in clouds, whatever you would like. And then I just did this Copic in around the dairy dip sign and on the ice cream sign, making it look a little bit more like probably like an old neon sign, and that would have color to it. And there's some glossy accents on that. You could put glossy accents on the ice cream cone if you'd like. Again, I made this more of just a stone building. These two look a lot alike, but I think my color copier did that, where this could be grayer. There's a little bit of looks like grass growing in these areas, excuse me. And then you could make a red awning, you could make any color awning that you would like to make, okay? So that one already has the enjoy a cool birthday. So I found that sentiment that was actually in a Stampendous set. Then there's this set here, which is the house, which takes a lot of your neutral colors. Looks like a thatching roof. I just highlighted some of the block that were in there, the wood door. This has come out a lot yellower on my printer than what I actually had it. And it has the sentiment already on there. And we're just gonna blend the things together. This one I did not make a mask for this one. I don't think. I may have. And we'll mask out the house on that one. So that's what we're basically going to do. These are the two sets I use. These are new sets from Anthony's Papercraft that the store has. All three of these came in this set, which I thought was very nice. And then this particular set is a lot of houses. So there are several houses on there, and we are doing the house that is in the middle, okay? So I have the mask, so we're doing the house in the middle for that. They all look very similar, and I just thought they were kind of fun. You know, this is almost the same, except the chimney's on the back side of the house, and this portion's a little smaller. Anthony is actually going to be at the store on the 3rd of March, which is right around the time that we have the garage sale. And he's going to be doing like a little trunk showing there of his stamps. He has lots of other items to choose from. So I have that mask cut out, which you've got. I've kind of cut out my mask here of the diner, and these are on the Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo masking paper, and I basically just use some type of a lighter like Memento or dye-based ink. You don't have to have a perfect image. All you need to get is enough to cut the top of that out, okay? So I'm just going to cut this out so it's a little easier for me to do that. And I'll put that on there, and I'm just cutting this as close to the edge, and it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? And when I fussy cut, I turn my paper a lot. I don't usually try to contort myself with my scissors. I'm a paper turner, so you need to find whatever fussy cutting scissors are good for you. I have scissors for all different things. I particularly love my little tiny Tim Holtz scissors here, but I don't like to cut fussy cutting with a serrated edge on those. I love to cut foam tape with those. But my favorite are these, are like the old honeybee caterpillars. I've got multiple pairs of these. So these are my favorites of all time to cut. I have the ones that are non-stick, which also is helpful. I've got a couple of pairs that aren't non-stick. So I'm just cutting around, and when you cut like on the line and you lay this down, it'll match pretty close to the image that I've given you to color. And you don't want to cut real far because you'll have like a white halo at that point. So I've got these images right there that are done. These are my mask, okay? So we'll need those a little bit later, but we've cut the mask, and that was the other portion that you had in your kit. Okay, so then if we look at the kits, what you've got is you've got a card base, and this particular one, which is the garage, you actually will have a little bit smaller piece of white. This is like 3 3/4 by 5. Whenever I do a dark card base like this, I always give you something white that you can write, or if you want to put a sentiment or something on the inside of that. We will have a craft layer, and then what we've got here is the blue layer there, and then this is going to tuck in behind. What we're going to do first is we're going to color this, then we can trim it out, okay? So we will color this particular one here. Now, again, I've got a list of markers. I pulled the markers out of my batch that I had listed, and these were just the markers that I chose to use in the project to try to keep it as, you know, as as few of markers as possible. Again, this particular paper is a little blue-green. You could use a blue-green, a BG series if you'd like. Okay, so what we're going to do on this particular one here is, this garage is a little lighter. So I chose into kind of that E40 series just to give it a little bit of color. And then when I get into I did a little bit of trim up here on the garage that was a darker color, so that was a gray. And then I did this garage inside there, which is a gray tone, and some of the window, just to give it a little bit of definition on there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with my E40 marker, and I'm just going to color, and I just flick from the sides, and it can be a rough color like this, just because it's an older gas station. It's going to lighten up, and we're going to go around the sign here, and these to me are very, very quick colors. If you look at the image itself, the artist has given you quite a bit of shadowing in there that you could work with. So then the next one I can go to is, I can go with my E41, and I can add a little bit of shadowing where all these dots are. And I can focus in a little bit more on those bricks that, like the blocks that look like they're showing through, okay? And I can just barely do a little bit of sketching around some of these areas and add some color. So if you hear some noise, my dog is in the room, so that's the chinking of her little chain, and she may be snoring too, so hopefully it's not too annoying. So I'm going to go back under this window, and we can watch this and see if it fades out a little bit, but it's not going to be really dark. I'm not looking for it to be particularly dark, okay? So I'm going to use the E40, and I'm going to do this layer up here at the top, and then I'm going to just add my E41 back over here just to add a little bit of definition there. Now this is where I decided to use the gray tones on this particular spot there. Just there's a little ridge there, and I could add a little bit more. Now this is into the C3. So in your collection of markers, what I tried to do was get my neutrals. Once again, we've talked about the fact that the W markers are warm grays, your C markers are cool grays. Those are the ones I really suggest that you at least have. But if you happen to have the N's and the T's, which are more neutral, you can always add those in, and they'll add another level. So when you're trying to come up with gray tones or neutrals or whites, you need to have something that designates that. It's just not white. So I tend to pick those W's and those C's in colors like that. So I look at this as just kind of being a beige white type of building. We added the gray up there, and I am going to add again my C3, and I'm going to color in like this. To me is in the garage area there, so it's going to be just a little darker because it's an inset there. I actually chose just to color the windows. I could bring in another color of window frame, but treating that like concrete that's gray and neutral. This again is a door. Typically that would be the restroom door on most gas stations. And then here's the front door right there. You can see it's open, and it's got a lot of depth with the shadow there. So that's pretty much what we've got. This would probably wind up being a concrete platform, okay? So we can start it with the C's, because again, to me, the concrete would be cooler, and we can put the cool on there, and just kind of go around where the pumps kind of have a little bit of definition in there. Now, there's two things you can do here. You could make this a complete concrete back platform. What I chose to do is to add just a little bit of color with my yellow marker, only because that would probably wind up being yellow that was painted, that like a curbing as a warning. So that's why I chose to do that in yellow. Okay, so now I'm looking at the next thing that I would probably do, and I have chosen to do the sign in a blue tone. So I've got a B000 and a B02. And again, you see I'm going to turn my paper, but this to me is in the front, a little bit closer, so it's going to be a little bit lighter in color than in the back, and I'm just leaving some white definition there in the center of it. I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, and I'm just going to do a little bit around those areas that are there. Coming back and just going over that again. Then we have a little area up here where this is Fred's garage, and I'm going to just add a little bit of color there. Okay, so these don't have to be perfect, and once again, this could be a metal sign, this could be a lit sign. Then I just chose again to do a little bit on the Fred's garage right here in the front of blue to make that sign in blue. So that was my B000 and B02. Now what we have is, this is a soda machine. Could be a Pepsi machine if you want it to be a Pepsi machine in blue. It could be a red machine, but I decided to make it like more of a red gas, you know, a red type of machine. Now, I am going to put more of a gray blue tone on the pumps. They could be a neutral, but just I'm gonna go in with a little bit of my B000 and just kind of do the front of the pumps here a little bit. Then I'm gonna come back with my C0 and kind of just go over that a little bit. I'm just trying to make that just a little bit more of a color, just to give them a little more than color, and the blue goes with that. I am going to color my green and my ground before I get into the red, okay? Once again, I'm gonna do that only because I want that red to be the last thing, and I don't want to be pulling any red out of there. I'm a YG green type of person, so I'm going to use YG61 and YG63. Once again, you can use any color you want, but I'm just quickly going in here with a scribble of this. I will try to, let me see if I can give you a little bit more. I went the wrong way. Kind of messed with my camera there, didn't I? So it's not going to let me do much with it. So, okay. Wanted to try to bring you up a little bit. There we are. Okay. So I'm going to bring a little bit of that green in there. Then I'm going to take my YG63 and just add a little bit where there's a lot of those dots there. And you can see those dots of the color there. And I'll come back in and just kind of, they'll mill out, but it's just the green on the side of the gas station there. So then we're going to put a little bit of a ground here, and what I'm going to use is I've got some E30s and E20s. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to start with my E23, and I'm going to just kind of come up here. This is a little dark, but I'm just going to put it up here kind of close to the station, up into here, and around like that. Okay. I've also brought in some W markers, which is I have a W3, and I'm going to come back in. I tend to mix a lot of my browns and my W's together just to kind of work through that color and pull that down just a little bit, okay? Now again, you guys know that if you've taken classes from me before, I am a palette blender, and I like to pick color up. I am also coloring on a glass mat. I am putting down some E35 just on my glass mat. I love to do this because I can pick up colors and mix them. So I've gone in with my W3, and I'm just picking up a little bit of that. Now again, if you don't have a glass mat, you can use a stamp block. You can use a old tile. You could use a piece of laminated paper. But so there that is. It's not perfect by any means, but I'm not looking for that to be perfect, okay? Because I'm going to do some blending with my inks. So now the next thing that we need to do is I'm going to use an R35, and I'm going to just add some color right here on the top of the pump. And then I'm going to add some color onto the soda machine. And my dog just barked. So hopefully that wasn't too bad. And then I have an R29, and I have I've replaced the chisel tip with one of those nibs that are a little nib on there. So I'm just adding a little bit of definition there to the machine, and then I'm going to add that. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow just into the window there. Okay, so now we have the gas station done. I actually do see that I forgot that there's this small little area over here on top of the garage area that I forgot to get. So now I've got that done. I feel that the image is colored and it's ready to go. Okay, I'm back. I had to let the dog out. So, okay, so now what we need to do is do some ink blending. I am going to get this little bit of ink off of my mat. I just use a squirt bottle with some alcohol in it and a microfiber towel, and I clean that off. You can use hand sanitizer, anything like that, just basic alcohol. So here we have our image that's relatively done. So I'm going to pan out a little bit here. I used Distress inks for this. This was, I thought, the easiest for me to do. And I chose brushed corduroy. And I'm just going to put a little bit on there, and I am coming up here, and I'm just blending in at the bottom. And again, I can blend a little bit. I can get like you could use a little brush, but all I'm trying to do is just give a little bit more definition at the bottom here. And again, if you choose to color that completely in, you can color that completely in at the bottom. But I just decided that I wanted to put a little bit of color down here just so I didn't have to do all the coloring, and to show you that you can use lots of different colors in there, and you can actually blend and use your different inks. Now again, I got a little bit heavy right there in the center, and I'm also using my larger brush. I probably should have chosen the smaller brush just to kind of get in here, but it's probably going to, the ink's probably sitting on the top of that right now because it's the Copic paper. So again, I've got this ink on here. I am going to just wipe off my glass mat. So this will all kind of meld together. It's a little more defined on the screen than it is on my camera than what it is in real life. So this is the right width for this. As I look at this, I've cut this. I probably need to take my green just a little bit further to the edge, even though there isn't a line art, and you could actually draw that in if you really wanted to. So this is the image that what we were going to do is we are going to fussy cut this image out. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to follow my black line okay? And I'm just, as I said, I am turning my paper as I go. And I'm coming over here and just kind of going around this, okay? And then, because again, I guess I can't cut and talk at the same time. And there's a lot of paper here that I'm moving with, so I just usually cut that off. Now I save these because when I want to do some color checks, I've got little pieces of Copic that are good for me to work on. Okay. So if I cut this out, and this is a fairly easy image to cut out. So I hope you guys like these images. They're, I think they're a lot of fun. And I said I'm anxious to see what Anthony brings. I think that there are some other items that he has that are a little different. So it'll be fun to see what he's got. Okay, so now we've got this image cut out. Now the only other thing I sometimes use, I have a couple of different markers that I've used from time to time. I have like an older Memento marker, which is the type of ink. But if you want these images, these edges that you've cut, just take your marker, and I'm just coming back over just lightly on some of these areas that maybe, because we maybe want the image to, you know, have that edge, that maybe we cut that off and it just emphasizes that edge again. So I'm just going around here, and this is just with one of my black markers, but something with a tip like this works much better. And it just kind of emphasized the edge that we might have just kind of trimmed off. Okay, so now we've got these two images here. What I am going to do is I'm going to quickly put this on. And again, you can use whatever is good for you, however you put your cards together. And I'm just going to put this one on here for now, because I don't think it's important that I totally show you how to lay things together. Okay, so now what's going to happen is this is going to go on the card, and then this is going to slide in underneath there. That's how I was going to do that, okay? So I used some foam tape on this to pop it up. I have a huge roll of foam tape that I work from, and I usually just cut a piece off of it. So you can take a full piece, or you can do squares, or however you like, or you don't have to pop it up at all. You can just partially glue it on if you'd like to. So I'm going to put that. So what'll happen is this will be at the bottom down here, because this is going to sit down here at the bottom of it. Now, I don't want to put anything over here. And I've got a pretty good size, you know, pretty big piece of foam tape. In fact, I do have some 3/4 I could have put in there. But I can just take a smaller piece of tape and actually just put it here just to make sure that that edge gets put down on there. And I'll do it again here. This is just to make sure that I've got my edges held down, okay? So that way I've got the edges they're held down, and that still allows me to put my little sentiment down in there, okay? Now because I thought the sentiment looked good over here, I know that I can put some foam tape over here just to support this, but I'm not gonna be able to go any further than where I've cut that. So again, you may understand that perfectly. I just wanted to kind of describe how I had put it together. Okay, so I'm leaving this section blank so that it goes above that. Okay, So then you'll have that. There's no reason for me to put this together. I've shown you how to do it. You can go from there and put the rest of this together. So there's the first card. Glossy accents, wherever you think that it would be fun to put glossy accents on this card. Okay, so that's card number 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the next card, and let's do the diner, okay? And you, again, will have a black card base. You'll have the white insert. This has a red card on it for the panel, and then you have your diner, okay? So now what we're going to do is color the image, and you do have a mask that we're going to use a little bit later. So that's one of the masks that you cut out, okay? And on the diner, I felt that the diner was going to be more of a gray diner, okay? So I chose to make this diner into the gray tones, and I did it with my C0 and my C3. You can go in and add as much as you'd like. I also have a C6 that I've added for some of like the steps and maybe the poles and things like that. So, and this is like a skirting that's relatively, again, does it look like a concrete block skirting? I'm not really positive, but just think of an old-timey diner. If you need to, go and Google some of them. So first off, I'm going to start with my C0, and I will go ahead and back out and try to get a little bit more here, zoom in for you. So starting with this, the top, I'm going to just come from the sides. And again, this side should be relatively darker, and it's going to be darker at the bottom because this is a curved top, okay? So I've just kind of played with that a little bit, coming in with my C3, and I'm going to just put a line there. I'm going to put a little bit of a line around here because, again, that's further. We have a little bit of shadowing. And now we can come back in and just soften that a little bit. Okay. And again, it's going to change just a little bit, you know, as you go. This top part here is the top part of the diner. Now, I did not treat that it had any neon, but that could be a little neon edge if you want it to be a little neon edge. This is a C3 that I've gone in there and just kind of put that darker marker, and I'll come back in. So and work on that just a little bit. So this could be an interesting thing where I've made the sign red, but you could just take this and basically do the sign. Let's make the sign a gray. And we're going to make the sign, I'm going to change this up on this one so you'll kind of get a little bit of definition in information here of how we can change that. So there's the diner. And again, you can see I'm not putting a lot of color, and this has got some streaks. And once again, when you go back over anything with a color, it's going to darken it some. I think that this is now, I'm looking at my C6 marker here. I'm going to go and I'm going to make this part of the awning here kind of the C6, because that's kind of an under part of the awning is how I'm seeing that, okay? What else can we do? We can do, well, we got the C6 out. I'm looking at the steps. I just made those, you know, a darker color. I also made the poles that are holding up the awning the darker color of the C6, okay? Just very, very lightly going in there. So let's look at, I made the bottom, kind of the skirting, I gave this portion a little bit of definition. That was with my C0, and I'm just kind of coming in with my C3 3 and coloring that, and then I'll just kind of bring it back together. Don't forget this little part of the door, in between the door there, and that shows that that's a little darker there. This is simple down here. I did this with my C3 and my C0, and I just did a light color there. So now we've got like the body here, and I'm gonna come in, this is my C0 again, and I'm just coloring in around the window. And this is just a really loose color, okay? Really loose color. I have a little bit of definition back here where it looks like this could be a freezer or the back part of the diner. This area should be a little bit darker because it's rescinding back, and there's a little bit of shadow underneath the top of that. And again, those dots that the artist has given you really kind of indicate and help you look at that. And I particularly like some white space and things. So now this is a little darker in here, but we're gonna leave the door just kind of a silvery white, just a very, very light. So now we've got, I think the diner's done. You can sit and look at it. You can always go back and you can put things on the diner that you want. And we are going to, I changed this up a teeny bit where I left Tom's sign in the gray tone. We are going to actually treat this as red neon. Okay, so this is the red neon there, and we're gonna put some red neon up around the Tom's sign, and it looks like it kind of goes down there. Okay, so we did that. Now, I did that with my R29. That was because I knew I had a thin nib on that too, but now I'm gonna use my R35, and we are going to just color, I'm considering these little awning. I didn't do anything in the windows. I think yellow would be too much. You could put a little bit of blue, but I left them because they've got that shadow on there of, you know, it looks like the glass is what the interpretation is. And I did forget to color the top of that little shed back there. Have to do that. And then I'm going to come back in with my 29, and I'm going to add just a little bit of shadow, like where I think that, again, these would have a little bit of depth on the windows, on the top, just to give it a little bit. It won't give it much, but it'll give it a little bit of a shadow. Okay? And the next thing is I did the top, and look, I forgot to do this window right there. There's always this little spot that you forget on and you miss. So again, this is my R35, and I am going to put some more color with my R29 on the top of the awning, because I think that's going to be a lot darker, a little bit to give it some definition on the side. And there we are. So I don't want to forget that I need to put, this is C6, that I'm coloring the top of the little, if that's a freezer, just the back part of the diner. So now we have again, I made these, they could just be concrete. I chose to add a little bit of color with the yellow as the bumper stops in the parking lot. And that I'm using a Y08. Any yellow would work for that. Then we have, I'm going back again to the two greens that I had. So it was YG61 and YG63. And so I'm going to use my YG61, and I'm just going to do these bushes are the same bushes. It must be the same place that Fred's garage is. And I kind of came back in here a little bit. I added a little bit there, just like maybe this is a parking lot that's kind of rough, and there's a little bit of grass still in that parking lot. we're going to come in with my YG63 and I just kind of do a squiggly line in around those bushes where that accent is. And then I will come back in with my 61 and just again lighten those out. It is a sketchy type of thing that I'm doing, okay, at that point. So now what we're going to do is we're gonna work on the ground again here. I put an E50 in there because I wanted to, that's a little warmer, but the E50 was what we were kind of using also for the ice cream cone. But you can come in and add a little bit of the E50 just to lay a base in. Any browns, okay, any browns that you want, you could probably match a little bit of your brown tone to whatever color you may choose to use if on the ink blending, if you want to do that. So we're going to go back again and use our 23, our E23. And on the E23, we're going to come and go up closer to the stuff that's, it's going to be closer to the building up in here. Maybe a little bit underneath a couple of the bumper stops. And again, I took the E23 and I laid that down on my mat because I'll pick some of that up as I go. So now I'm going to go back to my W1 and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to soften and kind of blend a little bit of these lines. And I'm kind of coloring white over those little weeds, I consider them. And I'm coming in and around and I'm softening. And again, I'm doing a gray with this brown, and by picking up some of this ink, it really helps to blend and kind of get a color that works. Okay. So again, I'm just coloring that. I am going to actually pull my E21 and see, yeah, I'm going to add my E21 to this mix just to add a little bit more brown in there just to even that out. And again, I don't mind that there's some of that blotchy, because now what we're going to do again is I'm going to pick up my brushed corduroy. And I am going to zoom this back out a little bit. And I'm going to come in here and I am softening that line. And you can see that I laid a base, but I can quickly just kind of even that base out without having to really work very hard at that, okay? Now I am going to I'm going to clean, this is, again, I have my alcohol. I'm going to clean my mat a little bit right here, only because I don't want to pull in that brown. So here's the diner. Now, this is where you want to go and get your mask that you cut, okay? And I don't know if there's I'm not seeing a break in the back of this where I've cut this, but it's relatively easy if you just keep kind of ruffling the edge. And I've got my mask. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lay this mask on here and we're going to get it as close as we can. I have a little corner sticking out, but that's pretty dark right there. So we've got the diner is covered, and you don't have an edge there, but it'll be perfectly fine. So we've covered that. Now I chose broken china as the color that I was going to use with my for my sky. So I'm going to add a little bit there, and I'm just very light-handed coming in. And if I just do a little splotchy, it looks like clouds. And I'll pick some of this up Load up my brush again. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just wanted a little bit of definition behind that. So you can see I've got my clouds. You can go a little bit stronger if you want on the sides. You can go a little bit, give a little more definition down towards the building. Okay, so now when I take my mask off, it's going to be a whole lot more noticeable. And I'm tearing this, I'm bringing it back relatively gently, because what I can do is save this, and I'm going to put it on my stamp set so I have this again, so I won't have to, I can reuse that mask. So now I've got the diner with just the clouds in the background. And again, you can put glossy accents any place you want on this. You can choose whatever colors that you choose to colorize this, okay? So I've cleaned my mat off a little bit. Once again, this is going to go on, and I've basically taken everything and I've laid it directly, it's just been directly glued. And this particular one gets this sentiment where you've got the happy birthday to you and the black. So you will flag this, and by flagging it, you can cut it off as much as you want, and make it as short. But what I do is I go into the center, and I will I cut up in the center, okay? Then what I do is I cut from the corner to the center, and I make my flag. Then I turn it and I cut in the corner into that. So I've made my own little flag. That's how I make almost every one of these, okay? Now you can, I'm going to just use some liquid glue real quick. Put my pen back in. I can't see it. Can't see the hole. That's what happens when you get old. And I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to put it on the black, okay? So I've got this on the black, and then all I do is I come up here and I just follow the line with my scissors, and I cut it. So I've flagged the bottom part of it, and if it needs to be trimmed just a little bit, I can always do that, okay? So I've made my flag portion for this. This one was a little bit of foam tape. We used some foam tape on the back of that, and then it went just up here. And again, you can choose to not use it or use it so it just goes up there at the top. So that was what I did for that card. Okay, so that one's done. Then the next one, we will do this one next, only because I think that if we, I can look at this and I can kind of speed through the Dairy Queen one there. And I shouldn't call it the Dairy Queen, it was the Dairy Dip, okay? So this particular one is going to, it's your brown tones. If you have browns and you have gray tones, that's what you're looking at, is browns and gray tones. And I used a lot of the browns and the grays, and let me see if I can find the picture again for you that kind of shows how I did that. I've got so many odd little pieces of stuff hanging around here. I don't know if I have that one. Here's one of my working drawings here, okay? So you can see that we've done the same on the background there, and we've done the same thing down in here, but I used browns and peeled paint on that. So this is pretty dark. So this is into the gray tones here. Then I used into my brown tones, so different kinds of brown tones. So that's what we're going to use for that. So I'm going to actually start on these particular things here, and I'm going to do a E35, and I'm just going to block out. And you can see I am not doing this by any means. I'll move my stuff for you here. I'm not doing these really perfect. They don't have to be perfect, but I'm going into just those blocks. I'm coloring those. I'm making those a little bit more of a brown tone. So this could be like a house that was blocked with it. It's, you know, they maybe stuccoed over it. There's blocks hanging out. So I am basically blocking those in, okay? So I've kind of put those in. And then what you can do is, I think I did a little bit on the roof there. I'll kind of hang my drawing there for you. I don't kind of lose that. I wanted to give you as much space as I could to see me draw, but yet still work through this. I'm going to actually go into my windows and just mark those off. Okay, they're like a wood, and you can see I am being not that careful at all. Okay. Again, if you look at these areas, I'm going back with this same E35, and I'm blocking out some areas that the artist has made, and these are scribble lines that they've made. Those dots give me an indication that that's like something of a shadow. Okay. So there's that. Now, again, this is probably a little browner than what I did on my first drawing, but it doesn't make any difference. This is kind of showing you what we can do. So I'm going to come back now with my W3, okay? And I am going to come over the W, and I am going to go completely over all of this. It looks like it's the house, okay? You can, don't worry about the bottom ledge, because I'm going to make that a little darker, I think. Now, if you want to distinguish that we want to probably make the roof a little different color, and maybe we want to make this chimney just a little bit of a different color. So as we add color to this, we've got the underside of the roof there, where you would have the awning and like a gutter. But you can see I am just quickly, now there's a little window. Now if you want some light in that window, you could put some light in the window. It could be a window, it could be one of those vents that you see on houses. So again, I've just quickly scribbled that in, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back with my W, let me think here. We may add a little more of a brown. I'm going to actually, I'm going to move this drawing just a little bit here. I'm going to add some E23, and this is again showing you that we can, sorry the squeaking, but showing how we can mix colors and, you know, actually get some definition in there, okay? So I've got this, I'm gonna pick that up, and I'm gonna come back in here with this, that's on my W3, and I'm just kind of highlighting in that area where it's darker, just to give it a little more color. So I've picked up a little bit of a brown tone, mixing it with a gray, and this is how you can mix colors and you can stretch your colors. So I'm adding it into that corner there. I'm gonna go and back. I'm gonna back out just a little bit for you guys, so I've got a little more space here, okay? I'm gonna let this dry so I can see how this is reacting and what it's actually doing. And I'm gonna go up to the roof, and I'm gonna do the roof, and I'm gonna go to a gray tone on the roof. So on the roof, I am actually going to start right away. I'm going to add, this is my C3, and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna block in the roof with my C3. Again, when you're getting into areas like this little awning underneath there, it's, again, you're the artist. You can do whatever you'd like. I'm going to cap this marker right quick before I wind up losing it. So, again, this, it doesn't have to be perfect, and these probably are trying to emulate shake type of things. Okay, so we did that with a very cool color, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm going to, and that was my C3. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back in with my C6, and I'm just gonna emphasize, this gets a little dark, but again, we're gonna get rid of some of that. And I'm just kind of emphasizing those little spots. Coming in, I can dot some of those areas. Okay. I'm gonna do a little bit on that chimney because I really didn't like the brown that I had put there. Okay, so that's my C6. Now, those were cool. I am gonna go back in now and I am gonna lay a layer of W3, which is warm gray, back on top of this, just to give it a different hue. Now you can see it's changing. Look at that versus that. And I just changed it. So you could put a W2 in there if you wanted to. The most important thing is that when you kind of match your number system when you're doing this, because if you go too light, it'll start taking color away. But you can see there's a definite change there. And if you want more gray, if you think you've washed it too much into a brown tone again, go back in with your gray and put more gray on top of that, okay? I am going to do these fronts in gray, okay? So they look a little bit brighter, maybe like they were the, maybe that's like the I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, the gutter system there. I'm gonna put a little bit of C6 just down in here to emphasize maybe some of the shadow, but there's not a lot of shadow there that I want to emphasize. So I'm coming back here and just kind of blending that out. So now it's coming back looking at things. Let's put there's the cap of the top of the chimney and maybe the pipes that are coming out of the chimney. So this house doesn't look exactly like my other house, but it's just, again, it's a totally different house. You know, we did a lot of brown. I can actually go in, let's see if I go in with my C0, does it take some of this out, but then I can kind of help make a little bit different coloration where we're playing with the colors, because I made the house more of a brown. So it's, to me, it's supposed to be a kind of a modeled, you know, older stone house. What I do want to do is I want to make, I want to do C6. I want to make these as being like concrete bottoms on the windows. And I am going to do the steps. I'm just going to shadow those out a little bit with my C6. So I go in and mark all over my hand, and I am going to blend that a little bit with the C3. Okay. Now the only thing I haven't done is the door, and I kind of want the door to be a nice brown door. So we're going to go in with a E23, and I am going to do the door in a brown. I'm going right over the what I would consider like some ironwork of the door there, because I'm going to go back with the gray. I'm going to add just a little bit of E25 on the side of the door and come back in and color that. Okay. Now I'm going to take my C6 again, and this is where you just have to keep going back and finding the little things that you've got. I am going to make this like just a dark vent over there, and I'm going to very gently go over this area, which is probably like a piece of metal in the door, on the door. So we've basically colored the house, and again, you could color this house. It does not look exactly like the house that I did before, but I quickly did this, and I probably would take a little more time, but you know, that's the process of going in and maybe making it kind of mottled looking. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to color the bushes, and no secret, it's going to be the YG 61. And by doing this, I see that I missed a couple of brown like bricks down there, and I'm going to come back in with it just to kind of soften that out just a little bit. So you'll find things sometimes like that you miss. And I'm going to come in, and again, I am just sketching, just kind of a scribble sketching in here. And again, we're going to kind of blend this as we go a little bit with our ink. Then I'm going to come back in with my YG63 and add just a little bit more, just to add a little bit of definition there. And we'll come back in with our 61. And again, I'm just kind of, you can see I'm just adding a little scribbly lines. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in the color, and this is where I chose peeled paint, and I'm turning that because I'm going to actually get rid of my Copic right here, so that if I add some, I don't mix those. So again, I've turned this because it's easier for me to turn this, and I'm coming in with my peeled paint, and I'm just kind of coming up and adding that color. And again, it's not going to make any difference. I don't need to do any masking. If you want to mask this or hold this a little bit, you could mask it. But you can see I'm just trying to get the edge of this together. I'm going back up in there like that. Okay, what I am going to do is I am going to get my brown, and I'm going to just, sorry about that, squeaking. I'm going to add just a little bit of brown to the bottom of it, just to soften that out and to make it look a little bit more. So I've added a little bit of brown. I can come back over here and pick up a little bit of this green to extend this line over. If you choose, you could take a marker and draw that, but I think it dissipates over relatively well. Okay, so I just chose like a green and a brown and blended those in there. Okay, so now what we're going to do, it looks like I laid my lid on my card. I've got mono sand eraser, might take some of that off. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our house. Oh, this is the wrong house. That's the reason why that one was there. Let's pull the right house. The correct house, I should say, off of my stamp. So you can see, basically, I keep mine and I just put them on the back of my stamp. So if you have the stamp, I just attach it to the stamp and keep it with the stamp, and it's there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to put this on, and again, work it down the best that you can to match your lines. And you can see that I don't have the coverage down here, but that's okay. We'll be fine with that. That's as wide as I did that. So now what we're going to do is we're going back to I chose again Broken China, and I'm picking up some of that, and I'm just coming in. I'm going to kind of come down in here and match that brown tone just to blend it in. Just kind of work it in next to that. And again, all we're trying to do, and I very easily made that look like a sky and didn't have a sky type of stencil. If you really want, or clouds, if you really want them to be distinctive clouds, then pull out your cloud stencils and play with it. But I sometimes think this is easier than trying to pick up your markers and colorize that and put that all in there. If we were into airbrushing, we could actually airbrush too. So there we have that one. That particular one has, that one's been done, and it's very, very pretty and fun. And what you're going to do with that is, these are totally up to you. I would take this image and I would put this on my card, and I would use foam tape, and I would foam tape this particular up. And this image I would put foam tape on. So again, you don't need to watch me put foam tape on. We're trying to do some coloring. So that card is done. So the last card that we have is going to be the Dairy Whip, okay? So the Dairy Whip is, again, we're into the basic same thing that we've done on everything. And if you did not cut the Dairy Whip mask, again, we need to have the Dairy Whip mask for this particular one. I have my Dairy Whip mask that I've cut, and my Dairy Whip mask is on the back of here. I had to make sure I didn't cut my ice cream cone off. So we have the Dairy Whip mask. Now, this one, again, there should be very little to go through that, we haven't already addressed. What colors do you want? This particular one, this is where my E50 also came in. I used my E50 on this one to make it a little bit, to change up the color a little bit. I started up here on the awning and did my E50, and I just came in where some of those marks were. Again, as I try to get you there. So, and I'm just kind of, again, we've gone in that little light scribbly tech, and that, again, this is white, but we've added a little bit of a color, which is a light color, to make it be just distinguished as white, but have a little bit of color. I also used the E50 on the ice cream cone, and I just added a little bit of color where the ice cream cone edges were there. Okay. So now we can also, let's do a little bit of just light color around the ice cream and the dairy dip, okay? Now, what are we gonna do with the rest of this? I chose to make this a a darker or kind of a gray awning. So I'm going to use the C3. Keep up the wrong ends of my pens. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do the top of the awning. And I'm going to do the stanchions on the awning. I'm going to actually choose to come in here and do the window area, just a little bit of gray tones there. Okay. Now I am going to, I'm not going to go directly, but I'm going to lay some C6 on my mat and pick it up just to add a little bit of definition, because I just want a little bit around the corners. So that just added a little bit of dark there to it. Okay. Now what we have is, let's do the picnic table. E23. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of E23 on this picnic table. I mean, it's like, see if you can find the little areas here. It's such a tiny little area. Okay, I think I've got the picnic table. If you think you need at all, you can go to your E25 and do the back parts of the legs, or a little bit of area that it's a little darker, but there's such a little bit there that it just is almost useless to do that. So we've got the picnic table. The next two things that we need to do is, I chose to make the dairy dip. I chose to make this a yellow neon around the circle of the dairy dip. And I chose to make the ice cream, I made it red. You can make them any color, but I was envisioning that as being a red. It could be blue to make it like a blue, cool. But again, we've kind of used these colors. Now, if we look at this, what we have to do is we have the ice cream cone. And this is where I would use my E21. And I'm going to start from up here just to put a little bit of color there. Okay. I will go to my I'm going to use my E35 because I want to add a little bit more of a level, not quite as dark as getting into my, my E23, but bringing that up. So what I tend to do is, this to me would be the highlight of the cone. And again, I've left that a white area. So I'm going to come back in with my E21, and I'm just going to bring this up just a little bit and pull this darker color. And I'm going to leave that area there as a little bit of a highlight. Now, what you can do is you can come in with your E35 or your E23, and if you wanted to, because of the waffle of the cone, you can just emphasize those with a little bit of a dark color. If you really kind of want to emphasize, you can get into there, but it's such a small image that it really it's, you know, like kind of difficult. We do need to take the top of the cone, and this would be like the top edge of the cone, and color that. So it's so simple just to color these tiny little areas, but I like leaving a white space because to me that emphasizes that, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. So we have finished most everything except the greenery, and there's lots of trees around there. So again, we're going to go in and we're going to use our YG61. Okay, once again, that perfect little scribble motion. And there's that tree. There's a little tree down in here. There's these bushes down in here. And there's these bushes over here. And again, you can bring this, because it can just be dirt, or you could put a little bit like it's kind of grassy under the picnic table, and maybe a little bit of them underneath the awning. So then we're going to go in now with our YG63. And again, I'm emphasizing these areas that the artist has given us as shadow areas, like in the trees, and probably because that one is behind this one, you could put a little bit of color there to add a little bit of definition. Then we're gonna come back in with our 61 and do a little bit of blending of that. And again, it's perfectly fine to have a little bit of a white space even in your trees. But again, these are very just, I mean, they're not cartoony, but they're just little bushes. They don't have a lot of definition. There's no reason to spend a lot of time really working through those. Because there, those are colored. Now what we have to do is decide whether we're going to make those yellow bumpers on the bumper stops, which I'm going to do in the parking lot, and then we're going to make this kind of a dirt, which I'm going to start with my E21 and just kind of go in here and scribble a little bit with my E21. And again, this would be a brown tone. You can go in and do any of those like colors. Now I'm going to go back to my my W1, and I'm going to put some W1 in here just to kind of gray it down to make it look a little bit more like dirt. And again, I'm emphasizing that more up around the building, the picnic table up at the top, maybe in around the bumper stops and over, okay? So it won't take a lot, but I'm gonna see how much ink I have left on my brown brush, and I'm just kind of coming in with my brown brush. And again, if we go over the bumper stops, that's okay, but I have a fair amount, and I just went over that. And again, it's fine. That's gonna blend out. So I am going to clean off my mat a little bit here, just because I don't want to, when the blue goes on there, I don't want to pick that up. So now what we have to do is we need to use our mask, and we're going to mask that off. Okay, and I had to reinforce my cone because I kind of tore my cone. But I'm going up in here and again trying to get as close as I can and working it down. And again, it's better to have the black line showing a little bit, because that way you'll be able to cover it. And what I am going to do is I am going to move the cone just a little bit if I have to. I don't want the cone to get blue, but there we are. We've masked that off, okay? So now what we're gonna get is, again, I've chosen the broken china, and I'm going to put it there, and I'm just gonna go over here, go around, and again, it's fine that it has a little bit of that spotty. I got a little spottier than I'd like to be, but a little bit of that spottier look, and we're just making it look like clouds. And you can go a little heavier around the edges if you want. And again, the ink is going to definitely, it will smooth in again to the paper. So now I'm going to very gently pull up my mask. And again, I can always put the ice cream cone on separately. And there we have it. We have the card, and we've put that nice little blue sky behind there very easily. And these were simple images to do. So to me, you know, this, you don't have to color every single thing that's out there. And on this particular card here, we have a craft card. We have a black layer, and we have the card that's there. Again, you can choose to put foam tape or do direct glue or add any other things that you want. I definitely would put glossy accents on what I consider the neon, maybe some on the ice cream cone. You may jazz these up with anything like that that you like. So if you basically have all of this, again, still have any questions, you can email me, you can text me. Here's my email, nancy@designinventions.com, my phone number. There's even my home address if you need that, or you can call Scrapmania. And hopefully you enjoyed this class. I know this is long. I've recorded this video. There may be some editing in it at the end. I will make that determination what we're going to do on that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. It gave you a few tips, and continue to color. Thanks for joining me.